Well, Otis and Baby are back in action, sans Captain Spaulding, but was anybody asking for it? Three from Hell stars Bill Moseley, Richard Brake, Sherry Moon Zombie, and is directed by Rob Zombie. What is up, guys? It's time to review, I guess, my first in the Firefly trilogy. I haven't done Devil's Rejects or House of a Thousand Corpses yet. I do plan on eventually doing those, hopefully sometime this year. Just didn't get a chance to do them yet. But I do like that family. You know, I like both those movies actually. So I was welcoming Three from Hell. I was looking forward to it. Do I got purple lighting back there? I'm in the middle of the review and I got purple light. I guess the beginning of the review. I'm going to change that real quick. I'm going to change that to, what color would we want to go with Three from Hell? I guess red for hell, right? Let's do that. There we go, red. But anytime you're reviewing a Rob Zombie movie, you're gonna need a monster.
I hope she likes cripples.
Bitch, I will crawl over there and I will skull fuck the shit out of you.
Because you never know what you're gonna get, or at least I never know what I'm gonna get, because for some people, they hate Rob Zombie. They hate everything he does. And then there are people on the opposite side of that spectrum that love every single thing that Rob Zombie does. And then there's me. But seriously, I'm half and half with Rob Zombie. You know, I like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, but I don't like his first Halloween that much. I like some of the Firefly movies, but I don't like Lords of Salem that much. So he's hit and miss. But one thing he's consistent in is bad writing. And sometimes the movie's good enough to make up for the bad writing. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is a good example. I think that is some of his best writing. I like his characters in that movie. I've reviewed that movie a couple times now, so if you want to go check that out, definitely check it out, and I'll give you my reasoning why I like it. I did a full 2-hour commentary with Jason Smith from Sinister Cinema Reviews, and we both love that movie actually, so you can hear both our takes on it. And there are some differences between the both of us, but we both generally like the movie, or love the movie. But we're here to talk about Three from Hell. This movie just came to Shudder recently. I do have a Shudder subscription. If you don't and you're a horror fan, you should have one. And I'm not getting paid by Shudder to say that. I genuinely think you should have a Shudder subscription. There's a lot of great stuff on there. I like their Giallo playlist. There are exclusives that you can get on there. So yeah, definitely check out Shudder if you haven't. Like I said, this isn't a promo. I'm not getting paid by Shudder. I'm a horror fan. You're a horror fan. I'm trying to do you a solid.
Fuck you! I'm trying to help you, motherfucker!
Also check out Tubi. Tubi's free. Tons of horror content on Tubi. But I waited to watch this movie because, I don't know, after watching 31, it looked like another 31 type of movie, and I wasn't really that enthused about seeing another Firefly family movie. Even though I liked the last two, I think the ending of The Devil's Rejects was a fitting ending for them, and how in the hell they could ever come back, I have no idea. I mean, realistically, no way in hell. But beginning of this movie, that's what happens. They come back, and I think Rob Zombie knows it's preposterous to think. You know, they even make fun of it. At the beginning, they mention how all three of them, they were shot like 20 times each. So Rob Zombie knows what he's doing, but the family has fans, and I think Rob Zombie was really just going back to the well, you know, trying to find a hit, because I don't think his last few movies have done that well. So I wasn't one of the first reviewers to get a review out for this movie, obviously. But I watched it recently on Shudder, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to get in front of the camera. I think I want to talk about this, because there is some interesting stuff to talk about with this movie, actually. First off, quick plot synopsis. I pretty much covered the ending of Devil's Rejects. Yes, they are alive. So this takes place in '88, 10 years after the events of Devil's Rejects. And so they've been in jail for that whole time. Captain Spaulding is only at the very beginning of this movie. Rest in peace, Mr. Sid Haig. The guy was a legend. One of my biggest regrets is not meeting the guy when I was at Spooky Empire. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. But I really wish I would have. One of our Killer Flicks mods, Mia, she actually met him there, and she said that was like one of her most cherished celebrity meetings. So I don't want to paraphrase, but I'm pretty sure I'm on the nose with that one. But yeah, one thing I would constantly hear about the guy is he was just always awesome to the fans. You know, he loved the fans. But the guy was in really bad condition by the time this movie came out. He was probably a good 50 pounds lighter than he was in The Devil's Rejects, I'm guessing. But, you know, he looked pretty frail. And he looked pretty frail at the beginning of this movie. And they do have this nice little moment where they're lamenting the character in this movie. And I enjoyed that. But not really taking his place, but Otis's half-brother, played by Richard Brake, is in this. Richard Brake, I think, is a great actor. He was in 31. He was probably the best part of 31. And I do actually like him in this one, and I was scared about that because Captain Spaulding, you don't replace that character. He is an icon. He's a legend, and I think Zombie played it smart by not trying to copy that character, but just introducing a completely different and new character. And I think he plays off of Bill Moseley quite well, actually. The two, they just have this chemistry together that works. And he's got some funny moments, too. You know, they kind of set each other up a lot. But jumping back to the plot synopsis, Richard Brake, he plays Winslow. He's Otis's half-brother. He breaks Otis out of jail because he's on like a chain gang type thing. And so Winslow shows up and creates havoc and breaks Otis out of there. And so then their plan is to get Baby out of jail. And so they use the lawyer played by Jeff Daniel Phillips, who is always a scene stealer. There's just something about this guy, and I've raved about him in the past. I just love Jeff Daniel Phillips. There's just something so interesting, really. I think that's the word I'm looking for. He's just a very charismatic type of actor. He has some kind of it factor in his movies. But in this movie, yet again, there's this one scene where they have him held up and they're like, you're gonna break Baby out of jail, and if you don't, we're gonna kill you. And they're probably gonna kill him anyway. And so he goes and just does this freaking Coke binge, you know, nice big line of Coke. And he says it's alpha time, and I was just rolling. I was laughing my ass off.
You motherfuckers! It's fucking alpha time! This is my house!
And by this time, I was saying to myself, I think I'm kind of enjoying this. I didn't expect that at all, but I'm actually kind of enjoying this movie. This is crazy. And I did. I was really enjoying this movie up to this point. We'll get to the last act of the movie a little bit later. But part of the reason for that is because of characters like Jeff Daniel Phillips. You know, he added something extra that was very needed to the movie. So once they break Baby out of jail, then it's just havoc. That's what they do. You know, they're trying to get away. They end up heading down to Mexico. But before they get down to Mexico, you got Otis and Winslow. And there's this scene where they pretty much hold this family hostage. And I like this scene. It's very similar to the scene in the motel room in The Devil's Rejects. Not as crazy, even though there is some crazy stuff in the scene. Don't get me wrong. This is the Firefly family. But the scene that was so freaking hilarious was when the great Clint Howard comes in and he's dressed like a fucking clown. And it's hilarious.
Where's the party?
Otis just has a ball with this. He's like, if you make me laugh, then I won't kill you, which he's going to kill him anyway. So then you got Clint Howard trying to make him laugh. And the scene was just so awkward yet so funny because it was Clint Howard. Like, Clint Howard could wear 5 layers of makeup and you'd still know it was Clint Howard. But the line that Otis says,
ah, fuck, he made me laugh. So I'm free to go? Yeah. Straight to clown heaven.
Basically, he's going to send him to clown heaven, and then he shoots him, and it was just, I was rolling laughing. So you get my drift here. There's quite a few scenes in this movie that are hilarious. This is probably the funniest of all 3 Firefly movies. And I guess the least dark. And I think that's a smart move. I think Rob Zombie didn't want to copy the first 2 movies because the first 2 movies themselves are very, very different. The first one is like this haunted house type movie with a little bit of dark humor, but I mean really, really dark, and it leans heavily on the horror. Second one is just a psychotic serial killer type of horror movie. So this one, it's more like the second one, but not as frantic, not as chaotic. Because once they get out of the States and they head to Mexico, then it turns into pretty much like an action movie, kind of like a Robert Rodriguez movie. But before I jump into that third act, let me talk about Baby real quick, okay? This is where I'm like in the middle here. And I don't blame Sheri Moon Zombie fully. I really mostly blame Rob Zombie because he tries way too hard to make his wife the coolest thing since sliced bread. Does that make sense? Is that the wrong thing? But he just tries way too hard to make her, you know, this badass chick. And I think, if I'm being honest, I think Baby does it on her own enough. And I think if he pulled back at least some, I think she would have played cool a lot better. Because there are a few moments in this movie where she is really cool without even saying a word, like when they show her at the beginning in the jailhouse and she's just walking slow towards the camera. Not a word saying, they got that cool song playing, it works. But then he gives her these freaking lines, and this is where I always talk about Rob Zombie's writing. Some of the lines work, and I think Otis gets the best of the lot, but a lot of the lines he gives Baby, I don't know if maybe Sheri Moon Zombie's like feeding him some of these lines, and it's, you know, and he does it. But ultimately, I got to blame Rob Zombie. I think she's really on the line. She's half and half. I don't completely hate her in this movie at all, but you know, some of the acting that she has to pull off is pretty tough given the lines that she has. But overall, it's still fun to see the gang back together, actually. Is it needed? No. They could have easily just ended this whole thing with the Devil's Rejects, but at the end of the day, I still had a good time with it. Now, that last act, it just turns into this, like, this shootout. This shootout in Mexico. And you got these guys that are wearing, like, these wrestlers' masks, and they show up, and the Firefly family, they've been having a really good time. That's hard to say, actually. It's kind of like a tongue twister. But Otis and Winslow, they're getting laid. And then, here's another thing, too. Rob Zombie will not put his wife with a guy in any of these movies. You know, the brothers are getting laid, but she is not. She's just hanging out with this little person, who is a good character. I actually like the little person in the movie. But when this scene first started, I was rolling my eyes like, what is Rob Zombie trying to do here? But then as the scene progressed and you got the shootout going on, it actually worked pretty well. And I thought it was a fitting third act. And I guess this really just closes off the trilogy. I can't imagine Rob Zombie coming back and doing another one of these. But you know, anything's possible. Now, before I give my rating, there's one more con that I definitely wanted to mention about this, and that is the way that Rob Zombie handles action. He just doesn't do a good job at it at all. The gunshot scenes, I think, are effective. They work pretty well. He's got some nice, surprising gunshots, especially involving Otis. But the hand-to-hand combat scenes are just piss-poor horrible. You know, there's a scene where Baby's in a fight. One of the security guards, played by Dee Wallace, the great Dee Wallace, and the camera was like literally in their armpits, pretty much. You cannot see any action going on, and Rob Zombie would kind of like do these like freeze frames throughout the fight to try to give it impact, but really it just didn't work at all. A lot of the action scenes, especially hand-to-hand combat, especially like knife fights and stuff like that, I could tell it looked fake. And you could be like the lowest budget movie, but you can still choreograph and film a fight scene right. It shouldn't cost that much. But for some reason, Rob Zombie just doesn't do it. Doesn't do it that well at all. And I think that can take you out of the movie. If you see somebody throw a punch and the punch looks like it's 6 feet away from the person, that's a dead giveaway and it takes you out of the scene. So that was an issue. So at the end of the day, was this movie a loss? I don't think so. I still had a good time with it. I liked Otis very much. I liked Winslow. And Baby did have some nice moments in there. I'm not going to take everything away from her. So I'll give it just a straight up humdrum. That's what I'm giving 3 from Hell. So post in the comments your thoughts on 3 from Hell. Looking forward to hearing them. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free Fall Fridays. You know, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.